This is a review video on how to simplify radicals. So, a perfect square is the product of a rational number multiplied by itself. You can take the square root of a perfect square, but if you are taking the square root of a number that is not a perfect square, you must simplify the radical. So in order to simplify radicals, we need to know our perfect squares. And you should know the perfect squares from 1 to 144. So 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, 144. If you don't remember these, you can simply find them by writing out a list. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 16, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, and so on. So let's take a look at our example. I have a radical 75, and if you notice, 75 is not a perfect square, so we need to simplify it. We're going to find the largest perfect square, which will divide evenly into the number under the radical. So of those perfect squares that we just listed, the largest number that divides in evenly is 25, and it's actually going to be 25 times 3. Then we're going to write, instead of writing radical 75, we're going to write radical 25 times 3. Then we give each number in the product its own radical, and you're going to reduce the perfect radical. So because 25 is the perfect square, that reduces to 5, and the radical 3 you can't change. So our final answer is 5 radical 3. And if you wanted to check this on your calculator, if you did the square root of 75, you'd get a long decimal, and then if you type in 5 radical 3, you will get the same long decimal. So let's look at a few more practice examples. Radical 48. So the largest perfect square that divides in evenly is 16. So I'm going to break this up. Instead of a 48, we're going to write 16 times 3. Then I'm going to give each number in the product its own radical. Radical 16, radical 3. And I'm going to simplify the radical 16 because we know that the square root of 16 is 4. So our answer is 4 radical 3. Example 2. The square root of 112. The largest perfect square that divides in evenly once again is 16 times 7. Give each number its own radical. So I have the square root of 16 times the square root of 7. Once again, the square root of 16 simplifies to 4. So I have 4, and we can't simplify radical 7. So 4 radical 7 is our final answer. Now let's take a look at one where there's a number in front. So this time I have 3 times the square root of 50. So I'm going to keep that 3 on the outside and do the same process. What's the largest perfect square that divides in evenly to 50? It's going to be 25 times 2. Keep the 3 on the outside. Give each number its own radical. The 3 keeps traveling along line by line. Now I can simplify that perfect radical. The square root of 25 is 5, and I keep that radical 2. And here there's just one extra step at the end. I'm going to multiply 3 times 5, which gives me 15 radical 2. And that is your final answer. All right, let's look at one more of those. 3 times the square root of 490. 3 stays on the outside. I'm going to break down this radical. 490 can be broken into 49 times 10. Give each one its own radical. Radical 49, radical 10. Remember that 3 keeps coming along line by line. Square root of 49 is 7. Keep the radical 10. Last step, multiply 3 times 7 gives us 21. Radical 10 as your final answer. So I hope you were able to review. Here are some practice problems to try on your own. If you'd like to do so, hit pause, try them, and then you can hit play and the answers will be displayed for you as well. Here are the answers to those practice problems that you tried on your own. Hope you did good.